Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Santa Barbara County Board of Education on this April 10th of 2025. Live simultaneous Spanish translation is available, as always, for those viewing online. And I would like to invite you to stand with me as we salute the flag. Thank you, Anna. Are you ready for roll call?
Sure. Mrs. Alvarez Flores. Here. Dr. Armistead. Here. Mrs. Cardy.
Here.
Ms. Ehrman.
Here.
Mrs. Frost.
Here.
Mrs. Reed.
Here.
And Mr. Walker.
Here.
Thank you.
Seeing no changes to the agenda, we'll go right to board comments. Does anyone have any comments?
I have some comments. I wanted to mention Lompoc Unified for their help with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, which provided over 66 beds to children in our community in just under 3 hours. A huge thank you to Lompoc High School for hosting the event and the school board there that worked along with them to get kids. The hashtag was "No Kids Sleep on the Floor." I thought that was fantastic. So I wanted to share what was happening in our community.
Anyone else? I'm very proud that one of the schools in my district, Aliso, was named one of California's distinguished schools along with 4 others. Our hats are off to those schools who are continuing to do really fine work, and it shows. Okay. Nope.
I'll just share. I might look at Susan to remember names. I was at the Fighting Back lunch, and it was a presentation with Superintendent Maldonado and Kenya.
Yep, Shakenya Edison. Yes.
Yes. And so I heard a lot about the mental health wellness in the schools, and it was just really inspiring and amazing on what's going on in our schools around mental health and the wellness centers. And so it was a really great presentation.
Excellent. I don't see any public comments.
Public comments.
No public comments. Okay, at that point, we'll go right to our first presentation. This one is on the state of the education workforce in Santa Barbara County, hoping to do this on a somewhat regular basis. And Susan, would you like to introduce Mari and Amy?
Oh, thank you so much. And good afternoon to the county board members, and good afternoon to everyone who's here. Mari Gonzalez, our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, and Amy Ramos, Director of Human Resources. Amy has a lot of the leadership around our classified staff, non-teaching staff. And together they have been presenting on the state of the workforce, a little bit of county-wide state of the workforce, but then also focusing on the SBCEO employees. I want to say thank you so much for preparing the presentation, and I'll turn it over to you.
We're so excited. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to share information with you. A lot of the data that we are going to be looking at today is looking 5 years back, so it can show you some trends, and then it ends at the 23-24. So each year we add an additional year to the data. Feel free to ask questions, interrupt as we work through the slides, and we will also provide time at the end for questions.
We'd like to begin today with some national statistics. What you see here on this slide was provided by the National Center for Education Statistics in their report from October of 2023, and that reflects the most recently available data. As you can see, 86% of schools nationwide have challenges hiring teachers. 83% have challenges hiring non-teachers, such as classroom aides. And the most frequently reported vacancies are in general education, general elementary, and special education. Overall, schools are faced with too few candidates or a lack of qualified candidates?
So now we're going to move a little bit from that nationwide to the state level. This slide shows the number of new credentials that were issued by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, which when you look at the dark red section at the top there, decreased by 24% from the year 2021 to 2023. And then the black box at the end, you can see there was a modest increase of 8% for those issued. Here at SBCEO, we wanted to focus a little bit more on how we are impacted by this. We have a tremendous need to fill special education positions, and that has been a great difficulty. Those, the bottom section of this chart shows education specialist instruction credentials, and that is the credential that is required for a special education teacher. You can see that the number of those credentials decreased by 31% in the 22-23 fiscal year, and then subsequently increased by 19%. So we are seeing a little bit of growth there. It says a lot about people going into the field of special education. In addition, here at SBCEO, most of our special education positions are in preschool settings, and that requires an additional authorization for early childhood education. So it isn't uncommon for us to get applicants who have this ed specialist instruction credential, but don't have that authorization. So we have to work through that process as well. So a credential allows you to teach. An authorization is more like a specialty or an additional area that you have to have additional education on in order to work with preschool age students in that case. There are a lot of different types of authorizations, but they are all what is required to do a particular type of job.
And that standard is a state standard or a county standard?
That is a standard of what they have to have by CTC, according to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, in order to teach that population.
Let me just say, the reason I'm asking is certainly we're in this environment at the federal level, Department of Education is being dismantled. And one of the conversations that comes up in my circles is it varies. It varies from who needs them to, oh my God, we can't lose. And I'm often thinking, because California standards in general tend to be higher than the federal standards, with something like this, the Department of Education going away has very little impact on this.
Right. The California Commission on Teaching Credentialing has its entire own set of code that it has been developed and it has to follow. On occasion, we will see a legislative bill that includes a change to some of those codes. For example, the new PK3 credentials that they're working through would have to go through that process. There have been changes to recent changes to the early care and education permit structure. So that's something that we will likely see in the next 5 years, but it takes some time for those changes to occur.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's also worth mentioning that we have seen an overall decrease in the number of those early childhood authorization that have been issued since 2020.
So that's an additional pool that just became even smaller. Okay, so now we're going to share with you some very specific SBCEO data in relation to recruitment and retention over the last 5 years. These two graphs exclude certificated managers. So I just want to make note of that. So they're really focused on those certificated staff who are directly serving students in the classroom. On the left side, you'll see a 52% increase in 23-24 in the number of certificated vacancies compared to the prior fiscal year. It is important to note that sometimes a vacancy will span more than 1 year. So that 27 and 41, there may be a couple of positions there that are over both of those years. The graph on the right side represents the total number of applications received each year. That second column of 53 is the pandemic year, so we consider that an outlier. It dropped pretty low to 53. Back up to 23-24, you can see there was a 51% increase from the year prior. That's a positive data point for us that we saw an increase in those applications. It's important to note that hiring is further challenged by other factors. As you can imagine, moving to this area is a very significant factor. We may get a lot of applications from out of the area, and ultimately they drop out of the running because of the move. Additionally, results of reference checks and background checks can also be a factor. Another important factor is that the ideal hiring timeframe for teachers is usually January through March. That's when a lot of teachers are actively looking, preparing to make a change for the July 1 or August, mid-August start time for their next contract. If we don't have, we aren't aware of all of our vacancies by that time frame, sometimes it's hard to fill them. So if somebody retires or resigns late and decides in May, it might be really difficult to fill that job for the following school year because a lot of people will have already solidified their contracts. And then, as we just mentioned about special education and particularly preschool special education, there's the additional factor of smaller pools of individuals who are available to be hired into some of our vacancies.
Moving on to classified recruitment now. As you're all likely aware, SCCEO operates a merit system for its classified workforce. And a merit system involves a very structured recruitment process and typically involves a multiple step examination process. Our merit system is overseen by our esteemed personnel commissioners, Carmen Jaramillo, Gary Picabet, and Mike Rastini. As we move on to reviewing these numbers, please keep in mind that a single recruitment, you'll see the recruitments captured in the bars on the left-hand side. A single recruitment may be for a classification with multiple positions that we're trying to fill. So paraeducator is a good example of that. Thus, the number of actual vacancies throughout the year is much higher than the number of classified recruitment figures shown here. They're two different things. Overall, the number of classified recruitments that we conducted in 23-24 has nearly tripled since the 19-20 fiscal year, even though our total number of employees has remained stable. Moving over to the right-hand side of the slide that showed the applications, the circled number in the last column might be a little hard to see, but that 23 is circled in red, indicates that only 23% or 284 of the 1,235 classified applications that we received in 23-24 resulted in candidates who were ultimately found qualified and eligible for hire, meaning that they passed each step of our examination process.
Much lower, yes.
So for those who actually make it through that process, new hires and promotions. This chart represents the number of new hires and promotions into classified and certificated jobs, including management positions, over the past 5 years. In 23-24, we filled 64% of our vacancies, and that was a slight decrease from 68% the year prior. And we continue to be concerned about those figures. While it's not represented in the chart on this slide, it's noteworthy to share that the number of promotions for employees remained at 18 in that most current complete fiscal year, which was the same as the year prior. So that data point demonstrates that we continue to be focused on recruiting our internal qualified candidates by building career pathways within our organization and encouraging internal applicants.
So Amy got the exciting new hires and promotions, and I'm going to take the separation side of it. This is the other end of the employee life cycle here. This data shows resignations and retirements for both certificated and classified employees, and it also includes management. It does exclude, just for the sake of the data, separations such as leave exhaustion, non-reelects, dismissals, and layoffs. We really just wanted to focus on voluntary separations. The annual turnover rate has increased from 8% in the 1920 fiscal year to 15% in the 23-24 fiscal year. When you calculate all of the 5 years, putting that all together, we experienced a 57% cumulative turnover of all employees. As a result, you can imagine we're losing a lot of institutional memory. We're also losing the people who have held and sustained our culture. So it really creates a need for us to focus on professional development, collaboration, team building, succession planning, all of those things that really keep the glue to everything that's happening in our organization. Demographic data, research, and anecdotal evidence suggest that the reasons for turnover include an increasing employee population nearing retirement age. We've been watching that over the years and expected that. Students with increasingly challenging needs, and individual employee factors such as burnout, caring for aging family members, and personal medical, behavioral, and/or mental health needs. This slide represents the number of classified and certificated substitutes employed by SBCEO over the 5-year period. On the left side is classified, and you can see that the number of available subs has bounced back from the pre-pandemic levels and even increased. However, because our vacancy rate has been high, it still doesn't quite meet the need that we have in terms of coverage. On the certificated side, you can see that we have not regained pre-pandemic levels of substitutes. This has had a very significant negative impact on our organization, especially given the increased number of certificated vacancies. This shortage has led to, and I'm going to give kudos to the divisions who I know whose staff are in this position, a need for administrators to step in as the teacher of record on a very regular basis. And that has, of course, negatively impacted their ability to handle other important needs. One key area we've been heavily focused on this year is promoting and supporting a particular legislative bill. It's AB 1224, because I know you want to know the number, that will increase the number of days that a certificated substitute can remain in any given assignment. Right now, for special education, they can only stay in an assignment for 20 days. For general education, it's 30 days. This bill would allow them to increase, us to increase that to 60 days in any given assignment, which would be very helpful for all of us. It's not to say that we wouldn't still be aiming to fill these vacancies with qualified candidates, but it would relieve some of the stress and allow consistency for both the students and for the staff. It's also hard for staff to have people rotating in and out of that classroom.
Staying on the topic of substitute. Each year in late May, SBCEO collects data from all of the school districts in Santa Barbara County about certificated substitutes, including their total number of subs, regular pay rates, and special pay rates. So you can see in this set of graphs that we've chosen to highlight data from 3 large school districts in different regions of the county, and then overall represented at the far right-hand side. We experienced a significant drop in available certificated substitutes during the pandemic, as we've mentioned. And the numbers have been recovering gradually, but unevenly, with some districts, including SBCEO, still not back to pre-pandemic levels. While this data reflects the total number of people signed up as substitutes, it's important to note that it doesn't necessarily reflect the number of people accepting substitute assignments on a daily basis. So for example, some substitutes may only want to work in one particular program, or others may want to only work certain days of the week. So that further limits the support that we have available. And it goes without saying that while this data reflects the certificated substitute shortage, districts countywide continue to experience the same challenges with classified substitutes. New limits on the use of CalPERS retirees as substitutes will also impact the ability of districts, including SBCEO, to cover vacant classified positions or to cover when someone is out on leave.
We knew that somebody was going to ask. We were prepared.
Yes. So most of our classified employees are enrolled in the in CalPERS retirement system. And well, previously, historically, traditionally, when people retired, if they were a PERS employee, they had to serve a 180-day waiting period, and then they could work a certain number of hours per year in a PERS system. And so sometimes we'd have people retire, and then they would come back as a sub for, you know, here and there to cover for an absence or somebody who was on leave or something like that. And that helped us out, especially because they typically already know the job. The PERS has reinterpreted their rule regarding post-retirement employment to severely limit the circumstances in which what they call retired annuitants can be used as substitutes. And so that kind of historical practice is pretty much going to go away.
Well, I think this is a trend. UC Santa Barbara, or the UC system's the same. They're really limiting retirees to come back and do anything. So I think it's the way that we're moving forward in all our retirement systems.
That was because of our advocacy, by the way.
Yeah, but they did increase it, so.
Okay. This slide represents how continual legislative change impacts the education workforce. The topics on the left-hand side of the slide represent areas of legislation that have passed in recent years or are being currently proposed. Some requirements are put in place to address immediate situations such as COVID-19, which included a plan, a training, and leaves requirements that may sunset over time. Other new requirements are presumably more permanent in nature. With so many competing legislative interests, we're bound to be faced with mandates that may not complement each other or may not work within the systems that we have in spite of the best intentions behind that legislation. So one major area of recent legislative focus at the top there has been on the development of written safety plans intended to support and protect employees. These include plans such as what I just mentioned, COVID-19, the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan, and the most recent Heat Illness Prevention Plan. All of these are addendums to the Injury and Illness Prevention Plan that's been required since 1991 and is regulated by Cal OSHA. The amount of research, interpretation, detail, training to implement these plans has been tremendous. Typically, the plans don't come in a box where we can, really roll them out easily. Our SBCEO team has taken the lead in developing plan and training templates to support the ability for both our internal SBCEO programs and for our school districts to be able to roll these plans out.
New mandated trainings have also been a significant focus of legislation over the last several years. Next year, for example, we'll be implementing a new LGBTQ+ training for all teachers of 7th through 12th grade students and training for the Heat Illness Prevention Plan. Last year, we added Workplace Violence Prevention Plan training for all employees in compliance with the new law. Just a few years ago, we implemented a new sexual harassment prevention training for non-supervisory staff. The one for supervisory staff has, of course, been in place for a long time. So as you can imagine, increased training requirements take time and can be challenging to add to staff responsibilities. Employee leaves is another area of legislative interest, including expansion of the California Family Rights Act, which is our state counterpart to the Federal Family Medical Leave Act. New regulations for leaves related to bereavement and other types of leave, and new legislation this year proposing 14 weeks of paid parental leave as a separate bank for the leave that is already available to employees. While all of these changes and ideas are supportive of employee health and well-being, they also require significant time and money and create the need for interim support while those employees are on leave.
On the last area there, staffing, legislation and administrative changes can have significant impacts on our ability to quickly fill out positions and cover vacancies. One recently passed bill, because I know you love the numbers, AB 2534, requires schools to contact every school where a certificated applicant previously worked to determine whether there were any credible complaints of, substantiated investigations into, or discipline for egregious misconduct. And egregious misconduct includes sex offenses, child abuse or neglect, or specified controlled substance offenses. The additional pre-employment inquiries required by this bill have resulted in significant increases in cost and HR staff workload. It might have been easier had there been a clearinghouse proposed or something along those lines. A current bill being proposed this year focuses on implementing a very similar requirement where it says classified employee database for all classified employees. And as of yet, in the conversations that we've been involved with, they have not identified a clearinghouse as we have proposed. So we're not sure how that's going to roll out. Yes.
Thank you. On the AB 2534, when you contact former employers, do they specify who or in that school or district, or you just call current HR and they look
Who
in
to
the-
contact?
Yeah, who do you get the all clear from?
That's
or
a
the
great
information
question.
from?
So each district or school district has to identify who it is that they want to be that person
point
or
person.
people. It might be for a very large district, you can imagine the number of inquiries they're getting. We've worked with one entity, Adjournment, which is an application system for certificated applicants, to actually start developing something where when they fill out the application, it will automatically tell us who has been identified as that person. Otherwise, you're just
Spend
guessing.
a lot of time
Yeah.
finding the person that could correctly answer the question.
So we're slowly trying to develop systems in the interim, hoping that we can get some cleanup bill language in the future to develop more of a clearinghouse.
I don't know why, I'm just out of practice, I guess. Are other schools allowed to give this information? Because there are places that protect confidentiality of, work history. So how does that?
So that's an excellent question. We all asked that exact same question at the beginning of the proposal of the bill. So the bill is written in such a way that it essentially absolves school districts from any liability for sharing that information. And it requires those school districts, if there is a case of egregious misconduct, to provide all documentation related to that. And I'm not quite sure what the intention of that was, other than maybe they were halfway through an investigation and they didn't substantiate. So you then take that on as a decision-making point. But one of the things we tried to push through in cleanup bill this year was to remove that portion of it. And we will continue to do that going forward. So our team, unless there's any more questions on this stuff, we can come back to questions too. Our team, with the support of the California County Superintendent's Legislative Committee and other school legislative advocacy groups, we continue to advocate for and support systems that protect and support people and that are practical and business efficient. So we're really trying to push that into that legislation. In conclusion, yes, we continue to face a staffing shortage, and we have increasing challenges with competing mandates. In spite of all of those challenges, we still have hope and we still embrace creative strategies and ideas how to draw people in. So we'd like to share one of those with you.
So you've heard of this campaign already, but we'd like to highlight this Join the Journey initiative as an example of those creative strategies that we're pursuing in order to address the staffing challenges in education. And we want to take this opportunity to recognize our communications team for their commitment and outstanding work in developing this campaign. They've been real partners with us in all of the strategies that we're pursuing.
So we're super excited to share this with you. It's a couple of minutes long. The intention, of course, is to show the different career pathways, to attract people to the field of education, and to elevate the field of education.
I'm Minerva Valdez, a food service site manager in Santa Barbara Unified School District Food Service Department. When I first started in this field, I was a food service assistant, prepping salad bars and cutting a lot of fruit and vegetables. Now, 25 years later, I'm proud to say that I oversee meal service for our entire district, supporting our food service department in providing the healthy meals that so many students rely on. This role is about more than just serving food. It's about providing nourishment, energy, and a welcoming environment, giving the students the feel they need to take on whatever comes next in their day. My role requires a sense of responsibility, dedication, and the ability to build strong relationships with those around me. In my work, I'm always collaborating with all kinds of people and creating connections that help us get to the finish line each day. Food service is definitely a team effort.
I've been working with the district for about 5 years. Before that, I worked in restaurants for 20 years. I never thought I had the kind of experience or know-how to translate that into education work, but the school district has a lot of different opportunities for people not even directly involved with teaching students. I've had the pleasure of working with Minerva for those 5 years as well, and there's plenty of room for growth in not just our department, but in the school district as well.
One thing people often don't realize about my work is how much of an impact we can have on a student's day. It's so rewarding to see the excitement when we serve their favorite meals or watch a group of friends come together at lunch, talking, laughing, and sharing their day. It truly is a privilege to watch them grow and to be part of their educational journey. And let's be honest, getting through the school day is a whole lot easier on a full stomach. If you're looking for a new career, think about working in food service in a school near you. You will learn skills, be part of a team, have opportunities to grow in your career, and most importantly, we may not be in the spotlight, but we know what we do matters every day. Join me in making a difference in a student's journey, one bite at a time.
Across the county, schools are seeking incredible individuals to fill positions both in and outside of the classroom. We invite you to join the journey and launch your career in education today.
One bite at a time.
So do these go district-wide, or are they going on YouTube, or?
They're everywhere.
All
Are
of
they?
these-
Okay.
They're also on a loop at the airport,
Yeah.
at the Santa Barbara Airport. Santa Maria Airport too? Okay.
They were in December.
Okay.
Okay, so is there one for each one of these individuals on the back? So one for the bus driver, one for the.
Yes, for all different
Okay.
careers and not just ones that you would find at SBCEO, because the idea is to support all districts countywide in their hiring. So
Okay.
for example, there's a video about a bus driver. We don't hire bus drivers, but districts do.
yeah,
So yeah,
they
so
do.
we're trying to highlight both certificated and classified jobs where we have struggled to
Okay.
fill all our vacancies, where we
Very
have
good.
shortages.
Thank you.
If I may provide some input, first of all, thank you, Mari and Amy, so much. And I think there's some more comments and questions from the group. Just wanted to point out the pop-up banners that are here today. are now traveling with us to different places. I think we featured them for the first time when we had our job fairs, both in North County and in here at SBCEO. Just wanted to say that, with the support from the communications team, they first put together 3 videos, and now we've increased to 6 videos. And now we're going to continue to increase. In fact, I think videos are happening next week, in fact. And we wanted to have a bit of a grouping together before really fully launching out. But we've got ideas, like we've already talked about the airport, but things like movie theaters, gas station, reels, more and more advertisement to help join the journey in education. And again, not meant specifically for SBCEO alone at all, meant to, we've already packaged these up for districts to use as they would like to use them. And of course, districts also have their own campaigns and offer employment for their own districts, but it's really meant to be of service to Santa Barbara County in hiring all positions for education. So yeah, really, it's very exciting. So back to you. I think you had some comments and questions.
I had a question. I actually have a 2-parter. You mentioned the legislative advocacy groups for the AB 1224, primarily responsible for those lobbying efforts. And is there any way to influence CalPERS on their decision?
So, well, CalPERS is a separate issue thing. The 60-day bill, I'll call it that, the one for substitutes, we actually proposed that from our state personnel group of county office HR representatives. And what we did was worked with the legislative advocate from the California County Superintendents to grab onto a bill and put our language into a bill that was dying, essentially. And so there are strategies to get in there and try to put cleanup bills or new bills in place. So that bill directly comes from our work. They, meaning the legislative advocates for the California County Superintendents, are heavily involved in working with the legislature, as well as groups like AXA, CASBO, CSBA, SSC, Capital Advisors. So I sit on a specialized group of advocates that are about 10 people from all of those groups. And I was invited to participate to provide voice to the practical implementation of things. So I've been really honored as one of maybe 3 people total who are on that group. And it's wonderful to be able to say, well, here's how it really works, when you get into the classroom or into the system that we work with. And then the CalPERS was your second question.
Yeah. Is there any way to influence?
So we have, even prior to their reinterpretation, which came out through a CalPERS circular, we met with CalPERS, we had meetings with them, we had them come to our statewide event to speak with us, did everything we could to convince them of what our needs were. They moved forward with that direction, but now that they have implemented that, they seem to be starting to soften a little bit on their auditing. The issue, of course, is when they come through and do audits and what they tag as issues for the district to fix. So we're kind of living through potentially making change to that.
And the question I have is, how close are we to getting the 60-day passed? Where is it living?
It actually just last week passed through both sides. It was bipartisan, very well supported, and CTA did have some concerns, of course, about the language and wanted some parameters. We proposed some mild parameters, such as if you have there's a thing called TPSL. I can't remember what the acronym stands for right now, but it's allows somebody to stay in a vacant position, or when someone's out on leave, they can stay there for a longer amount of time. So if you have people eligible for TPSLs, you have to use that first. You also have to make sure that you are heavily recruiting. But instead of it being specified what all of those things are, They just left it open-ended and accepted that. So far it's moving along and has bipartisan support. So it's looking very good.
By when?
Uh,
Think.
when would it go into effect?
Right.
I think that one's July 1st. If
what
not,
I
it always goes into effect January 1st, unless otherwise specified, but I think that one is July 1st. I'd have to go back and.
And I'm just asking because with some of the residency programs, the teachers that are becoming teachers also have to put in a sub day once or twice a week. And so that affects their program also. So we do have subs, but only once a week or twice a week from that pool of people. And
Yeah,
there's always some way to try to do it, but
this would at least allow, we'll still have the same amount of subs, but at least there's consistency. Because when
For
you
the
have
kids,
20 days
yeah.
come up and you have to switch to someone,
I get it. No,
that's really rough
I
on
believe,
on
I
the
get it.
kids
Yeah.
on the staff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Well, thank you for this presentation and for all the work that you are doing, you and your team are doing. The marketing campaign looks great and it's exciting to see that being rolled out. I have a two-part question as well. One is just in terms of the campaign, the marketing campaign, as that is rolled out, what kind of tracking measures do you have to measure the efficacy of people that are actually coming from those campaigns? And then going back to the question around substitutes, this could be kind of loaded because are you having any pathways for substitutes to become full-time? And I know that could be a little hard because then once they're full-time, then they're not able to sub, but that was the only trend that I saw that was actually increasing over the pre-pandemic level. So if you could speak to those two, that would be great. Thank you.
I'll start with the second one, which is yes and yes. We definitely try to grab pools of people who are interested and move them forward with their education or their credentialing or whatever it is that they need to be able to apply to become a regular employee. And that is extended to apprentices, for example, through the early care and education program, paraeducators for special education teaching who have bachelor's degrees and could move in that direction. We have something we just set up recently. It's the second year. Tom and our credentials manager and special education program specialist are holding meetings with interested individuals who want to learn more about how to get into the credentialing world. So we have many efforts at trying to grab pools of people and have them elevate or promote in the field. Your first question, I'm looking at Delaney. I know there's real terms for this that I'm probably not going to say correctly, but with social media, for example, and all of the advertisements, marketing that we're doing using the campaign with social media, there are ways to track the clicks and the engagement and the feeds and the analytics and the scrolls, or I don't know what it is, but there's all kinds of things that you can track there. So that really helps to know, okay, how many people are passing it on to someone else or actually engaging with the marketing advertising.
Yeah, I noticed the scan bar on the ads, and obviously if they scan and go in, they know where where it came from. So
yeah, right.
Our applicant tracking systems, we have questions about where people found out about the opportunity. And so as I think as we have more of a formal rollout of the Join the Journey campaign, we could certainly list that as a way that people can choose if they saw a video somewhere or an ad, that they can select that as an option, and that'll give us some feedback about how successful our various efforts have been.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have a presentation on the alternative payment program in early care and education and how to access that APP. And I think Susan will introduce us to Janelle Will.
I'm so delighted to introduce the topic, and let me give you a little bit of framing before bringing Janelle Willis up, who's just a dynamic director at SBCEO. So the board, we've talked about early care and education quite a bit over the last few months. We know we're wanting to expand in areas geographically in Santa Barbara County. We also know through budget presentations that the early care and education department, which is actually in Bridget's Student and Community Services Division, but the early care and education department comprises 42% of our entire budget. It's a very substantially giant program. And that equates to about $60 million for ECE, early care and education. And a part of ECE is the alternative payment program. That's about 40 million of the 60 million. Yeah. And so because it's such a large component, and I know that the board wants to be advocates for early care and education and share with people about our programs, we thought rather than have a presentation on the entire ECE program, today we'll focus on the alternative payment program portion, that largest component of ECE. And we have a fantastic, dynamic, so smart, so incredible director in Janelle Willis, who's coming up to the podium right now as I speak right now. Yes, and we wanted to make sure that you had a face to the name, and that you got a chance to meet her, and Janelle, that you get a chance to meet the board. Yes. And we're so grateful that you're here. There's a lot of acronym soup with early care and education in general. Definitely with this, I know Janelle's going to work really hard to ensure that we share all the acronyms and explain it in a way that we hope that you would then be able to explain it to someone else. So you've got the presentation and you have a flyer. Okay, I'll step that back. And you have a flyer as well, an info flyer, and we'll go from there. So yes. Janelle, thank you.
And I'm going to try to keep this high level. I will explain acronyms, and if I do not, you can stop me and ask, and I'll do the best to my ability. So I am Janelle Willis. I'm the Administrator of Early Care and Education. So I help support the entire department. And as Susan outlined, we're going to be talking about our alternative payment program today. So thank you for having me here. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about what is the program. And it is an assistance program that covers childcare from ages birth to age 13. So families choose what type of childcare that they want to receive, whether that be childcare in a center, with a family friend and neighbor, or with like a family childcare. That's where you have family childcare in your actual home. And on top of just giving them the childcare and helping to support that childcare, we also do a family needs assessment. We do that when they enter the program. And so we are giving and supporting the childcare part of it, but we're also supporting things like, do they need access to the food bank? Do they need access to housing? And so we do that kind of a warm handoff to make sure that they're getting the other resources as well. So the funding is to support the childcare, and we are required and expected to do the other part too, to really be kind of a one-stop shop to kind of help the families get the access to supports that they need. So how does a family qualify? So on the right, I'm giving an example of a family of 4, and this is the income that they would have to earn below this income in order to qualify for the program. You have to have the income. And yes, so that's a way that you could become eligible, but you also need to have need, which means if dad's staying home and is not working and mom's working, well, the expectation is that dad's caring for the child. So the family members, both parents, have to be looking for work, working, seeking employment, which is looking for work, incapacitated, going to school, things like that. Now, about 2 years ago, they added in this pre-qualified section, which is actually really nice. And what that means is if a family is already receiving some assistance, things like Medi-Cal, so health insurance support, CalFresh, support for healthy food, Head Start, early Head Start. WIC is where if you have a young child, you might be getting support with diapers, milk, things like that. So anyone who's receiving those services, they're already pre-qualified on the income side. So for them, it just makes it's easier for the parents to gain access and easier for us to enroll them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then CalWorks is cash aid, and I'll explain that a little bit more later.
I have a quick question about the monthly income. Is that for a family of 4, or is it?
So I gave you the example for a family of 4. There is different income qualifications based on family size. So if you had 2 parents and 3 children, then that would be a family of 5, and the income changes. So we do have that on our website, and that does, so the bigger family you have, the more you're allowed to make. Okay, and that does change slightly year to year, so we have to kind of update that annually.
Are all of the examples based on 2-parent home?
No, I just picked this one as an example, so you guys got a basic idea of the funding and like how much a family could make.
I got a bunch of them too.
And I might answer, but maybe not. Go ahead.
But sticking on that particular thing, could you have a multi-generational family?
Yes. Yes. So explain a little bit more about your question so I can answer it correctly.
Grandparents, parents, kids in college, and kids in primary and secondary school.
Okay. So if a grandparent or parent is actually taking over responsibility for that child, which sometimes happens, then they can be counted. There's a lot of regulations around that. I don't want to get too in depth with it. As soon as a child turns 18, they're no longer continued part of that family. Even if they are still, well, hold on, as long as they're outside of high school. If they're in high school and 18, they still count as part of that family. Okay, does that help?
That help, and you gave an example of grandparents to help. So my question is, do grandparents living in the home?
So if the grandparents are living in the home, it doesn't automatically say that they're going to be part of the family. It would really depend on if, let's say, dad's not part of the situation, mom's there, and like a grandparent is responsible.
I'm going very specific. So we got grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, all in the house, and everybody's poor.
So the only family that will count are the family, the parts of the family that are responsible for the children, who are like legally responsible for taking care of the children, paying for the children. It's almost like the ones that would be on your taxes. That's kind of a good example.
So if my parents, if I can qualify my parents as dependents, because I'm spending money to take care of them.
There is a gray area around that, and usually what we have to do is we have to work with the Department of Social Services to get some agreement. So I can't say yes or no.
Okay.
Don't you love that answer? But very, very good question. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process. So when a family comes in, anyone in our department can do what's called an eligibility card. And that just gets the basic information from the family. If we are actively enrolling, that family might go right into the second stage, which I'm going to talk about. But if we're not actively enrolling, what happens is that family gets a ranking number and then they're placed on a waiting list. Okay, so if we're actively enrolling, then the family comes in. We do an enrollment process where the caseworker works with the family to really get all the paperwork that we need on that side to say that you're eligible, income, need, all those things. And then we also do an orientation with them, because this is a complicated program and we want to make sure they know everything that's required of them in order to come into the program. We also talk to them about choosing care. So we educate them about the different types of care. It is their choice, but we also do education around it. Once they choose the type of care that they want, then we have to onboard the provider, because the provider needs to have certain qualifications, and then they need to have an orientation to make sure that they can follow all of the components. Once that's done, we approve care, and then we have what's called attendance logs that go out every month. The providers fill them out, excuse me. Both provider and parent signs it, and then those come back to us. They get audited to make sure they have all the components that are needed, and then fiscal pays the providers. We get about 35 to 4,500 claims a month, and that averages about 400 checks and 700 direct deposits. And that is monthly for our fiscal department. So it is a lot of work for the entire team. I also want to just kind of outline that this isn't a one-time thing. There's ongoing support that we provide to our providers and our families. We provide continuous education, and there's changes that are needed. For example, a provider might say, hey, I have a family emergency. I have to go to Germany for a month. Okay, well, now we're helping the provider make changes to their schedules and things, and we're making sure the families that are receiving services have other support during that time. A family might say, hey, I have a new job. Now I'm working at night, right? Okay, well, now we need to figure out, extend that care and make sure that they have that support as well. So it is an ongoing change. It's not just a one-time support. Oh,
Just
go ahead.
for purposes of sizing the issue, you mentioned the number of checks, disbursements. How many providers?
I'm going to show you a
Oh.
card in a second. Thank you for that question now. No, that's okay. Great question. So what I want to talk about, and this is very complicated, so I'm just going to keep it simple. And if you guys have more questions, I'll be happy to give you more information. There are multiple different ways to come into the alternative payment program, and there's actually 4 different funding streams that support it. So the first one is the CalWorks system. And stage 1 is actually run by the Department of Social Services. And this is where families come in, they're receiving cash aid, they're receiving other work support, and they start getting services there. So they do all the stuff we just talked about, but Department of Social Services does it. Then the family becomes stable. So they get transferred to stage 2. And in stage 2, they can stay in stage 2 until let's say, after. When they finish cash aid, they'll stay in cash 2 for up to 24 months. And then based on legislation, they automatically go to stage 3. I'm going to explain who does what with this in a second, but that is one system. Another system is what's called CAPP, California Alternative Payment Program. And those families can come into that system never having gone through the cash aid. I'm going to give you more information. So this is what alternative payment program does, like SBCEO. We run those 2 stages and CAP. Stage 2 and stage 3, well, really all of them, they all have different doors of entrance. So a family might have come through the CalWorks stages. They might be in stage 3 and then they realize, I don't know, maybe they lose their jobs, they have a hard time, and they actually become unstable again. They might go straight back into stage 1. Okay. People might be in stage 3. They might be doing great. They no longer need that support. Great. They're off. They're not receiving any services at all. Then something happens. They don't need to go into cash aid, so they're not going to go back to stage 2 or 1, but maybe they can come through the CAP program instead, because now they have the income need, or the income and the need. So the main thing is it gets complicated, but there's a lot of different doors and entry and exit that can occur with this. So now to your, oh, go ahead.
First of all, I love where you're going with this.
Trying to.
Susan, I thought I was running for Chamber of Commerce. You tricked me. Now, this is really good information. And I'm hearing it in the context of a lot of things. I'm hearing it in the context of where we are in the country, which means where I am in my little town. And so I hear all these entry points, exit points, buzzword, fraud, waste, and abuse sort of leaps out. Where's the accountability in the system? I also want to make sure I'm hearing, this is a SBCEO program?
Oh, so this program is actually funded by the Department of Social Services.
Okay.
And we are one of the agencies that run this program in our county. There's actually 2 different, well, Department of Social Services does stage 1, and then Children's Resource and Referral and SBCEO do the other stages that I showed you, run these stages.
Okay.
This program is offered statewide. So funding is kind of allocated by a whole bunch of different things that I do not control and sometimes do not always understand. There are a lot of regulations and checks and balances with this. Lots of requirements for, as you said, fraud, checking with things for providers. I mean, the amount of checks and balances that we have, not only in our own department, but just like as a alternative payment program as a whole, and then also within fiscal and ECE is tremendous. And that's also one of the reasons why I have 5 people that ECE pays for in the fiscal department separate from ECE side, is so that we have those checks and balances and we can really check. Because when you see some of the money, you'll be like, that is a lot of money going through SBCO, which I will show you in a second.
Which I applaud. I mean, so again, I mean, just to be clear about this, for me, I think people, who do what you do, your focus should be on where's the safety net for all the people who are, right? And this is a big safety net. But it also suggests to me that the opportunity for fraud, waste, and abuse is clearly there because it's a lot of moving parts.
It is, and I can do another presentation another time talks about like all the pieces. I mean, we have verification from employees, we have paychecks, we have a whole bunch of different things to show that they actually have that income and to show that they actually have that need. So there's multiple ways to verify that.
Sure.
Kind of complicated, but again, you give me like 30 minutes, I'll go through the whole
I
process.
might invite you out.
Does DSS come in and audit?
So DSS comes in and audits. So we have
Annually?
every 5 years, they do an in-depth audit. We do what's called a program self-evaluation where we have to report annually. And we internally do 4 audits a year ourselves as ECE. We do what I call 2 sneak attacks where I don't tell them what's going to happen. And then we do 2 where we're outlining what's being pulled. And that's on the fiscal side and on the ECE side. So a lot of checks and balances because we want to be ready for that 5-year audit. So let me talk a little bit about families and numbers. I'm just going to take this year, I'm going to take last year. So 23-24, you see that we served, actually I'm going to take 24-25 because the numbers are even higher. So right now in the different programs, we're serving over 4,000 children. Okay, and that's actually 4,000 families, even more children. And then for providers, you can see how we've had that huge increase as well. And one thing I want to outline is the orange. So when you look at the orange, those are what's called exempt providers. Those are like the family, friend, and neighbor. And one reason that has increased so much is 1, we've had more funding, but 2, what we're seeing is, especially in certain areas of our county, the centers and the family childcare, the licensed home providers, they're full. So the only option these families have is to have a friend or a grandma or someone provide care for these kids. So it's really shifted over the last few years. So talking about funding. So stage 2 and stage 3, these are numbers from 23-24. These stages fluctuate. And the reason that they fluctuate is because if 100 families come in through that process, we get funding for the 100 families. If 500 families come in, we get funding for 500 families. And as I said, they can kind of move around. So it changes. Now in CAP, we have a contract with Department of Social Services. And that contract is technically a 2-year contract, but we get it each year. So for example, in 23-24, that amount of funding, we have up to 2 years to spend it. Our goal is always to spend it that year so it gets out into the community. But that's just the way we're funded differently. It takes a lot of calculations and projections and all those things to really stay on top of all this to make sure that 1, we're spending the money, and 2, when do we enroll new families? When do we need to hold? All those types of things. So also talking about funding is I often hear things like, wow, you guys have so much money. Well, we do have a lot of money, but I want to kind of outline what that money is used for and where it goes. ECE and SPCO doesn't get the $60 million to do all the work. So like this example, there's $54 million. About 45 million of that goes directly out to the providers to pay for the care. Then so we receive 17.5% of it to do the work. 8.5 goes to indirect, all the things that indirect does, and 9% of it goes to what they call admin costs, but it's really cost of running the program. That's salary and benefits, facilities, office supplies, just the general what it costs to run the program. So that is what we get to run the program. So I just wanted to kind of give you that visual.
What percentage of the need does this fill?
Ooh, that is such a good question. I would have to bring you other numbers to say, okay, what is not being filled to tell you the exact percentage of this. And this is just our alternative payment program. CRNR, as I said, also runs an alternative payment program. They are significantly smaller than us, but I think to give you like a good idea, we'd want to combine those and give you numbers that actually like looked at the entire county. Okay.
Thank you.
So we actively take eligibility lists. We, like I said, when we enroll, it depends because we're constantly monitoring. So if you want to refer families, please do. We have both Spanish and Mixteco support available. We just got a Mixteco caseworker, I don't know, 6 months ago, 4. And I will say, when we brought her on, we've had more and more of that community coming, which has been amazing. So again, send them our way. And just kind of giving you some ideas of what's ahead. We are actually working on hiring a counselor and embedding some counseling services within our alternative payment program. We are working on hiring a program associate because I need help creating quarterly newsletters for families and providers just to kind of keep them in touch with what's going on. We are expanding in Lompoc, which I believe you guys are already a little bit aware of. We have 2 offices. We're going to be moving to 4, hopefully. Also, Delaney's going to help me with wording later and stuff, but we're trying to figure out something like coffee with ECE or something kind of catchy where we have a set time where there's a Zoom and a phone number where providers or families can just call and ask questions. They already know someone's going to be there, just to have, just kind of make it a little bit easier and be accessible. And then obviously we are very closely monitoring our federal funding. So to give you guys some example of federal funding, if I took like 24-25 information currently, federal funding for the AP program is about 24%. For our entire ECE program, it's about 26%. So those are things that we are keeping on top of. And then I have to talk about all the people doing the work. This is our alternative payment team, most of them. And they are the ones that are day in and day out supporting the families and really making the childcare possible. And I just want to give a shout out to them because they are amazing. And they are stationed all throughout the county. Polk, Lompoc, and Santa Maria is where we have offices. Right now, our numbers have been fluctuating. I think when you're talking about, I don't know how many are in that picture, maybe like 40, and we're probably like with AP support and stuff about 45. We've been giving HR and IT and everyone else a lot of work because we've been constantly hiring to stay on top of all this.
Okay. My burning question from when you got up there was, Head Start appears to be gone. One of your pre-qualifies are people that are in Head Start or early Head Start. So will those just come to you to qualify then? Because that source of pipeline will be closed.
So when we talk,
the need is there.
Yes. So when we talk about the AP side, if Head Start goes away, that is one thing that can occur, and whatever families we'd be able to support, we will. But the issue is they are centers. They are very high quality educational centers.
Right.
So another thing that we're working on is we have what's called CSPP funding, California State Preschool Funding. And we have some funding that we're holding right now. And we have never done something called subcontracting where we hold the funds, but we give the money to someone else to actually do the work. We run the centers ourselves. We have some increased funding that we could subcontract. So Head Start has already reached out to us and said, hey, if this happens, will you subcontract with us? Because that way they can keep their centers open that are already serving kids and just switch the funding.
But there'll be no federal funding coming.
So instead that would be using the state funding instead of the federal funding. But we have to create the whole system of subcontracting. What does that look like? And there's a lot of rules and regulations around that. So I am actively working with Bridget to set that up. We're going to be working with the business department and legal. And we're hoping to do that it's not going to be a complete Band-Aid, but it will be better than it completely going away. So I actually have a meeting with Head Start to get numbers from them to say, what is this going to possibly look like?
The county?
Yes.
Is that what you would
in our county?
And do you know what's happening in other counties? Have you heard, is this the strategy for the Head Start to come to the counties? And
so I don't know what's happening with every other county right now because this is so new.
Right.
At the end of May, we have our COPAC meeting, which is our meeting where all the county offices come together for ECE. And so we'll probably have more information. We also know about May revise and different things at that time. So I think everyone's kind of watching and waiting and making plans, like tentative plans for what might help.
A short update.
Yes.
Then.
Yes.
or a long update.
And we are actively making sure to any funding that's available to make sure that we get to help to support this.
Thank you, Janelle. That was an incredible amount of information and very, very, very helpful. And again, I'm always impressed by the team here and all the work that you all do. And so I always have like 3 questions in one. So the first is you talked about the wait list. So can you speak a little bit into how many people generally are on the wait list? And then what is the timeline for people being able to get serviced if they're on the wait list?
So historically, our wait list has been thousands and thousands of people. When we have, over the last few years, when we've had continued increased funding and cap, that wait list has gone down significantly. At one point, we had like 10 people on the wait list, and we were actively promoting the program. It is back up to about, I want to say 500 families the last time I looked. And what happens is as families, maybe their child turns 13, they leave the state of California, things like that, then we go off the wait list and pull off. The hard part about the wait list is it is ranked. So you might be a family who just comes in as rank 1 because you do not make as much money, you have more need. And then a family comes in or has already been on the wait list at like 20. Well, people keep coming in with a higher need, the people down here are gonna be on that wait list for longer. So I can't give you like a very clean explanation about like, oh, you're only gonna be on the wait list for a month. It really does vary.
Okay. So back to that scenario, if you're like on the bottom rung here, and what would be like I know you can't say for sure, but approximately what would be the wait list time for that?
It could be years. Recently, I will say it's been, once we've had increased funding, it's been about a year. But the other thing we do is we don't just say, oh, you're on the wait list, you're done. We do that education piece about what options you have. So if we know that, oh, your child's, I don't know, going to a school district, have you checked in with them about their after school programs? Have you checked in with the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club? Hey, let's get you connected with Head Start or with like a state funded program, because that's another option too. So it's not just, oh, let's let you on our wait list. If there's any other places that we can help connect them to, we will.
Perfect. Okay, I have 2 more.
Yeah.
You don't have time for 2 more. And they'll be quick. And then quickly, how are the providers selected?
So it is family choice. So if it's a licensed provider, we have to have verification of licensing and all those things. If it is a family friend or neighbor, if it's like a blood relative, there's like affidavits and things that have to be signed. But if it's a family friend or neighbor, like someone who's, sorry, not family, but if it's a friend or neighbor, they actually have to go through what's called a trust line process to get cleared before they can become a provider. So it varies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like what I say, right?
Makes sense. Okay. And then the last one is so you mentioned briefly the federal funding.
Yes.
That the program receives 24% for ECE and about 20% for APP. So is there any contingencies, or what are you thinking for if that funding is removed? I know that's a big like varies, but just if there's any talk or what thoughts you have right now about that.
So for the AP side, it's a very, specific funding. So if something was to be done, what we've seen that's been done historically is families would then have to be pulled off of the program, usually highest income first. That has happened way back in the day when there was some huge reductions in this. Other opportunities though, is there are some funding out there, like United Way has some stuff that's supporting certain families. So would we take those families and direct them, like any other place that might help fund it? We'd try to move those families too. But really, we're just trying to say, okay, what's happening? Is there anything else out there that might be an opportunity, and just kind of getting ready? But that's where we are right now. For the other funding in ECE, we are preparing other things. For example, we do a lot of professional development. So we are doing like starting to get ready a fee for service. So it's, if a grant used to cover all of our professional development that we do to the districts, maybe now instead of the grant paying that, Is there a fee for service that we can set up? So those are things that we're also working on.
So much.
No problem.
Are there any other questions for Janelle?
I just have one, which is what's the best way for parents to find out about this? Because you're saying 0 to 13 years. So I'm thinking of, single mom, 3-month-old baby kind of situation. Like where are they going to find out, or any single parent, where are they going to find this information?
So the comms team has helped us a few different times to put radios, like news, radio information out. We've done flyers, we've done social media, newspaper. We've done a variety of different ways. I think if you guys have any other suggestions on how to get this out, we would be happy to do it. We've also been doing things through like local planning council to provide information to like parent groups, right? So if there's a parent group, can we share that information with them? So we're getting it out there. It doesn't mean that everyone knows. We are also working with school districts so that they have this information, so that when families come and enroll their kid, even in first grade, they might have younger children, or they might need help for that first grader. So all of those things are resources, but we're always looking for other ways to do it as well.
May I insert? Okay, thank you so much, Janelle. Thank you so very much. I said dynamic and I really meant it. Yes, yes, yes. I also said director, and she absolutely deserves a promotion. So she's actually an administrator. So you're definitely at that level. I also wanted to share with you, to the board, our website, and give you some information and show you a short video about this so that you know where to point people to if you'd like to. So this is our SBCEO website. They would, it's on ECE. And Donald is navigating, I think Donald's navigating for us. So this is literally the landing page for early care and education. You can see the numbers. So the 4,000 families, the trainings, we have centers of our own, which we didn't go into today, our $40 million to support the families. We have a video here. I'm going to skip that for a minute, come right back to it. And just down below, if you're a family, you would click on families. If you're an early educator provider, you click on, if you're an administrator or a caregiver, it gives you personalized information so that you can access more information based on the audience. If we go up to the video, which again, as Janelle said, credit to the comms team for working on this, but I'd like to share this with you so you can see what the SBCEO ECE video looks like that somebody might click on and learn more. So here we go.
What does the Santa Barbara County Education Office do to support high-quality childcare and preschools, and what resources are available to providers and families? Let us show you. Meet Katie and Ian. Maybe they are like you. They have 2 young children, full-time jobs, high monthly bills, and limited support. They need help. That's where Santa Barbara County Education Office's early care and education programs come in. ECE exists to help all Santa Barbara County families and providers through a variety of different programs. The Alternative Payment Program is a state program that provides child care vouchers for eligible families. It's one of the easiest ways families can get financial support. The financial help can go towards child care, a neighbor or friend providing child care in your home or theirs, or a family member who watches your kids. That's right, the Alternative Payment Program can help pay grandma for child care. The APP can also help you find resources like free diapers, tax services, food assistance, and medical insurance referrals. To qualify, you must be a Santa Barbara County resident and have a qualifying income. You do not need to show proof of citizenship. Our registration process is confidential. Give ECE a call to be connected with someone who will walk you through the process. If your family is like Katie and Ian, you too can get financial help through the Alternative Payment Program. And did you know? ECE also offers a wide range of training opportunities for child care providers and early educators. If you're like other early child care providers around the country, maybe you're seeking more from your continuing education. and chances are you're seeing an increase in challenging behaviors in the classroom. Or maybe you want to improve your instruction but aren't sure where to start. ECE will help you get paid to participate in engaging professional development. Find specific training for the challenges you're facing, and get personalized coaching to suit your individual needs. ECE specializes in offering support to local childcare providers throughout the county. Explore our website to learn more about how ECE can help you by clicking on a community member and reading more under frequently asked questions. Under Families, you'll find information on universal pre-K, diverse learning settings, how to enroll in our nationally accredited early education centers, and participation in the local planning council. Childcare providers can find out more information on reimbursement for food served at your childcare center, inclusive practices through the Inclusion Initiative, and getting financial help for your enrolled families through the Alternative Payment Program. Administrators, check out our admin page to learn more about changes to policies that might affect your programs or centers, universal pre-K and P3 programs, the Early Childhood Educator Apprenticeship, and new training opportunities. If you are a family member, friend, or neighbor that watches children, click the Caregiver page to learn how to get paid through the Alternative Payment Program and get cleared through the Trust Line Registry. We look forward to serving you and our community through our amazing programs. We are Santa Barbara County Education Office's Early Care and Education.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to you.
Boy. Our comms department does such a great job. Thanks for that illustration. Although I don't feel particularly adept at rolling all this out to anybody. I do know now where to point them and to tell them to just call Janelle. Excellent though. Let's hear our superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. And one more time, thank you to the presenters today. Really appreciate it. So you have my report to you in the board book. I do want to call out just a few items today. One, right after the board meeting, if you're passing by the auditorium and want to feel very uplifted by all of the student art, please do go in there. Young Artists and Authors Showcase reception today happening starting at 4 o'clock. And reception at 4:30, and the artwork will be there for you. The Santa Maria Valley Chamber of Commerce State of Education, you see the dates there. It has been moved now to the Fair Park. We're really excited to share about the state of education with the 4 superintendents from the Santa Maria Valley, as well as Dr. Kevin Walters. So we'll all be there presenting together. You have the save the date for the education celebration right at your places. We'd love to have you there. Such an incredible evening. Director Stephen Keithley does a phenomenal job under Ellen Barger's division. And we can't wait to highlight the Teacher of the Year, the Career Technical Educator of the Year, Educators of the Year, the Bill Cerrone Heart of Education Award winners, and more. So please let us know if you can attend. We'd love to have you. And you see all of the other program updates as well. I want to say how not in your book, but just will say how excited I am for Saturday. Saturday is not excited because it's the last date, but excited because I get to see the students for the last time this year of the Student Advisory Council. It's the 3rd year of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. High school, public high school students are invited from across the county. And this year, we've met 4 times this year. Our final one, Saturday, Chuck Madsen, who's the director for the Future for Lompoc Youth, will be a guest speaker speaking about advocacy and using your voice and putting it to action. So we're really excited there. Dr. Elise Simmons, Anna Friedland, Jonathan Reyes, Isabel Guerrero are co-facilitators with me. And we co-facilitate so that although this meeting will be countywide in one location at Santa Ynez Valley Union High School District, the other meetings we're actually located in different locations across the county in person, and then we come together by Zoom when we need to in those meetings, and that's how we can do it countywide. Really tremendous students that have such a vision of hope and aspiration. This is this is like the infusion that you need right now, and it's definitely with them. So I'm really excited about Saturday. I want to say too, we've mentioned it multiple times today. Janelle, you said it several times, and I think Mari and Amy too, around uncertainties and changes and unknowns and knowns. And I know we've communicated already around the March 20th executive order around the dismantling of the Department of Education, which is an executive order and not necessarily a mandate for all of us at schools, nonetheless signaling a shift. And want to express that, of course, as in public education, we always follow the law, and at the same time, we serve every student who walks through our doors, and that is our mission. We know that the Department of Education has already decreased their number of employees by about 50%. We know that there's a promise, maybe too far, but statement that Title I funds will be preserved, that Individuals with Disabilities Act would be preserved, that there's certain congressional programs that would be preserved, and yet there's still so much unknown. We do know that there's been significant impacts on institutes of higher education already due to the research funds being pulled away. We know that, or it was reported through Chancellor Yang's office, that several students with F1 visas have been revoked, and international students. Head Start, which is not a program at the Department of Education, but the Department of Health and Human Services, we know regional offices were shuttered unexpectedly. So I think it's the unexpected nature. It's this real shifting sands that happen so quickly that are disconcerting, and yet we're carefully watching. There's actions and statements, and then there's a difference with what's really going to shift for our students. So we're watching all of that. Some of the changes that I'm really keeping an eye on for our students have to do with school meal funding. So really looking to see about school meal funding. That is a function of the Department of Education. We'll see what happens around vouchers, changes with school funding and vouchers. E-rate is something that we're watching as well. So E-rate allows for lower cost connectivity for public schools. We're looking to see if there's some changes there as well. And we've already raised the case of federal funds for programs. I've communicated with the board. About 12 to 15% of SBCO's funds are federal funds, but that does fluctuate. So ECE has higher rates of federal funds versus another department. I'll make it up, like curriculum instruction might have lesser federal funds. So it's really over the entire organization, about 12 to 15%. We've looked at school districts. Our school districts are less impacted by federal funds than the county education office. We have some districts who receive less than 1% of their funding, all the way to about 12%. So it's something we're watching. We've got a absolutely unwavering commitment for serving all students in our schools, and yet we're watching to see what are these impacts, and what will we do about them, and how can we plan. So wanted to give those comments today, and see if there's any questions on anything that I've reported to you in your materials. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah. Really, there are no words. Let's look at the consent agenda. We've got the minutes of our March 13th meeting, the registration of credentials and certification documents and temporary county certificates, and our declaration of surplus. They're all in your board book. Do I have a motion to approve consent? Thank you, Katja. A second?
I second.
Thank you, Vida. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. On our action items, we have the recommended approval of the Santa Barbara County Ed Office Comprehensive School Safety Plan. This would be for our courts, juvenile court and community schools program, special ed and early care and education. This is for your information. We also are asking for a motion, and Dennis Thomas, who's SBCEO's school safety liaison, is in the house and he's awaiting any questions. He's not prepared to speak this unless we have particular questions, unless you'd like to speak. I don't want to remove that opportunity for you, but okay, we have a question.
We have a question. Of course we have a question. Is there a plan for, I don't know the correct word to use right here, so I'll skip it and you can fill it in. Is there a plan to disseminate, how's that, all of this information to everybody who needs to know it, which it almost sounds to me like everybody needs to know it. So how is that going to happen?
Sure. So we have these hard copies, and we also have it on our website. We also I provide training with the staff at Fitzgerald to go over this, and we also provide that obviously they have access online to review it, and we also let them know that it has to be reviewed by all the staff yearly.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dennis?
I have a quick question. So at the beginning of the information that's provided, there was kind of a spreadsheet or a chart of all the different programs and then all the different sections, and then which programs and facilities were required to follow each assessment.
Sure.
And this, I'm sorry if this is like a basic question, but how did you determine which departments were to follow which sections, if that makes sense?
It does. So this is specifically for our schools that are not supported by other districts. So if this is specifically for us, it's just JCCS for our school. And then we have also covered a couple of our early child care education centers under our CSSP. So essentially the way we determined that was if they're on a district, another district's property, they use their CSSP.
Okay, thank you for that, Dennis. Sure. Do we have a motion to approve the school safety plan? Thank you, Sarah.
I'll second.
Nadja? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. The next item is the recommended approval to expand the lease. This is for the ECE area, and it refers to storage space. Superintendent is recommending this approval. And this is regarding the South C Street and Lompoc facility. Any questions on that? If not, and I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Judy. A second?
I second.
Thank you, Vida. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Guess what?
Change order.
But I am told
We
this is
missed
the
you.
last one.
That restriction.
Yeah.
What's
This is
the
the
last?
last one.
Really?
For this project, we're done.
You're gonna bring us cookies and.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
We should be bringing.
You, this is the case of the water fountain.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, to get the wheelchair accessibility past the rails of the water fountain, I pushed it into the wall. So we had to reframe it and get a header above it. And that just gives us ADA clearance, so. And then the second one is just removing some old electrical out of the building that was left over from the previous furniture. The new furniture came in and it got new electrical. So those are just a couple of small things that weren't on the plans, but then were picked up through the process of the project. But we're done. This is closed out. I'm filing notice of completion with the county tomorrow. That starts our 30-day. Nobody can come asking for more money.
All right.
So I'll process that tomorrow and we're done.
And
Congratulations.
Cabling and phones are going in this week. They started yesterday. And then I'm working with Ellen's office on programming the phones towards the end of next week. But I'm really letting Ellen tell me when to put the people back in, but within a shorter amount of time.
Great. Finally have a home. Yes.
You'll need like a ribbon cutting or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be some
Maybe we
fanfare.
can make cookies, yeah.
I really like your cookie idea.
Any other questions on this ADA compliance issue? Really, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
wrapping that up. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Kasia.
Second.
And Judy will second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? And that motion carries. And finally, our last action item is reimbursing expenses for board members to attend the Santa Barbara County School Boards Association Annual Dinner next Thursday on the 16th. I think we've got quite a few of our board members attending now. Yes, so it'll be a great attendance. Any questions on that, or who would like to move to approve this item? Thank you, Sarah. Second? Guys seconding, and all in favor?
Aye.
No oppositions? And that motion carries as well. Personnel report is for your information only. We are still, our Williams Uniform Complaints Quarterly Report is an attachment. And looking ahead at future agenda items, we're capturing all our ideas. We're looking at career tech ed, an update on our TK and universal pre-K programs, and the human trafficking issue. These are all in the works. Are there any other agenda item suggestions? Anything else we'd like to bring forward? That's good for now. Okay. At this time, Sandra.
I just thought of something. And we'll probably do this as we meet, but if we can just maybe have updates with what is going on with the Department of Education and federal funding, just because things are changing so quickly. And just to have that, right. Just to have that information as what's the most current up to date in our meetings would be helpful.
Good idea.
Thank you.
How it impacts the county.
Thank you.
All right. Well, at this time, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.